Blender. So as soon as we start with Blender, you'll get a default scene, and of course generally you'll be getting a cube over here which I have removed by default. So you can go for mesh, add a cube. So this is basically the default scene that you'll be having. Now Blender is almost a keyboard shortcut based software where you need to know a lot of keyboard shortcut to be effectively working with Blender. The first thing is you should be able to move around this scene, which we call viewport, to visualize the object properly. See, this is the menu, this is your viewport, and this is viewport. Now there are basically two modes, object mode and edit mode, which you'll be predominantly using. So once you select a specific object, if you press R, you should be able to rotate it. Press R twice, you should be able to rotate it in all axes. So this is basically the first thing that you should be able to do. Again, press double R and done. If you press escape again, it is going to take you to the default scene. Now you should be see, this is where the camera is and the light will be falling in this direction. Now you can move forward and backward in your axes, or press this line, go forward, go backward, or go forward, go backward. So this is how you can move the object. The next important thing you could have is, you may require a specific view, either front view or top view. One of the most prolific views that we basically use in Blender is a top view. So you can select your view from here. You can see several views: bottom view, top view. So you should be knowing the shortcuts. It's quite easy, if you can remember the shortcuts. So 7 is for top view. If you click on 7, this is what basically it is going to be. So you can align your object nicely with grid, bring it to the center point, and this is how your work would be. And once you bring it to center, you can move around. Press numeric key to go up and down. See, numeric key 2, and by pressing 8, this is what will happen. So 2 and 8 will move your viewport up and down, and you can also press 4 and 6, which will enable you to rotate around the axis. So your base will remain to be same. You can rotate around the axis. Right then. So this is primary. I can again click on view, either go to top view, or I can use 7 to just start working. Now next, let us make a small table or chair kind of thing to know how basically it works. What are the important aspects of modeling? I'll pretty much select this way of doing, and this gives me more or less all the views, the three-dimensional view of the stuff. Now another important thing that you'll require for modeling is scaling. Scaling in X direction, scaling in Y direction, scaling in Z direction. So keep your object view and press S. I repeat, press S, and after pressing S, if you press X, that will give you a scaling option in X direction. You can elongate it. Again press X. Then if you press S and Y, you will be able to scale it in Y direction. So S and Y. First press S and then press Y to scale it in Y direction. Then if you press S and Z, you should be able to scale in Z direction. So right, once we have done this, again we can press 7. See, this is your tabletop. you can very much move ahead, move along the tabletop and see how it works. Now this is the top view, or so right then I'll select this view so that I should be start work. Now the next important thing is I'll be making the legs of this table, and for making the leg of the table, what I'll be doing is I'll be cutting this end and I'll be projecting it in the Z direction. So for doing that, you need to cut it nicely, and this part should be extracted. Remember, you can also take separate cubes and do that, but that's quite tedious. The easiest way to do it is, whenever possible, just cut your model object into specific parts and project them. Now in order to do that, you have to shift to edit mode. So I repeat, in order to cut your object, you have to repeat to shift mode and then press. Okay, I'll repeat it again. Press F12 and you'll see this, because your light is not in a proper direction. I'll again come back and just move along to see if it's perfect or not. I can see it's perfect. Now I want this is not the table, this is inverted table, so I want the legs to be down. What I'm going to do is, from edit mode, I'm going to change to object mode. Right, you can see your table here. Once you've done that, again we'll use R option. See now, nicely your table is moving. Put it back, right, and then use R option to rotate it nicely. Now what we want is, with respect to our specific view, so if it is a top view, this is how it's going to be. Now you can select this light and just like your object, take it at the top so that it's viewable. What you can do is, you can place multiple lights also. So hold your object and you can press duplicate object in order to duplicate any object including your light. the same time you can also press Alt D to Alt D in order to duplicate the object. Now so fine, our model is ready right now, and I'm going to see the front view. This is not exactly the view that I wanted, so from this view selection I'll select 3D view. And you can press your numeric keyboard minus and plus in order to zoom in or zoom out. So numeric keyboard minus and plus will help you to zoom in and zoom out. You can also visualize your camera where exactly it is located. You can just move around and see your plane, so you can have the perspective field of view. If you press F12, will be able to see only this view. You see whichever is coming in the region of the camera, so you must be able to adjust your model in such a way that it is quite well visible by your camera. That's what we are going to do. So we are going to push this entire model in your field of view and such that it is particularly well visible. So view is an important thing, how your camera is going to see it and all, and you can press R always to rotate it. Now it's in my perspective view, and if I press F12, you should be able to see your entire model. Right, then this is one important part of modeling, how you'll be doing the model. Now another interesting thing that should be part of it is cutting the portions and joining them. Now in our next tutorial or in our next section, we are going to see how we should be able to do that. So I'm going to make sort of a chair model where even that aspect would come into place. I'm going to close Blender, again reopen it so that to give you a fresh view. This is the splash screen that gets opened, and I should again be starting with a mesh, and I'll be placing a cube as usual. We'll go to top view and use 2 in order to see it works. In the staying in the object mode, I'll press staying in the object mode, I'll press SX to scale it in X direction, and same I'm going to scale it in Y direction. Right, and also I need to scale it in Z direction, so I'm going to make it smaller. In Z direction. Fine. The same way that we had done earlier, we'll be moving to top view and we'll shift to edit mode. Once we've shifted to edit mode, we'll be using Control R, right, this is one cut, Control R, this is one cut, and then Control R, let it be, this is the second cut, Control R, this is the third one, and Control R, fine. As usual, again I am going to click the face option, press my shift key, right click on my mouse, and select the faces, and I should use extrude region. So by selecting extrude region, I should be able to project them. That's right. So this part, as we have done in the last one, is right now ready. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invert this thing upside down. So for inverting, I'll again go back to object mode and I'll use rotate option. Now fundamentally, when you look at the, you should remember that we are still in top view, and fundamentally when you look from the top, you are not yet able to see any legs. You'll never be able to see any legs. Now, in order to shift the views, you can just verify. If you want to see front view 1, this is what is your front view. When you look from the front, and again going back to top view, you can press top view, can press 7. This is your top view. Again from back, if you want to see, this is what you are going to see from the back. So I'll be moving to, key number 7. I'll press key 7 in numeric keypad. Remember, it's not the keypad on your top of keyboard, it's the numeric keyboard. So right now I'll again shift to edit mode. I want the pushback of the chair, so I'll go to edit mode. You see there are 2 cuts. Now I'm going to take these 2 regions only to the top. So I'll hold shift, right click, I'll hold shift, right click, and I'll use extrude region option. So right, I have lifted 2 things. Again I'll go back to object mode and I'll see how it is seen. Right, very nice. You can see more or less my chair. This is how it looks, right? Then I should be able to join them also in order to visualize the pushback sort of a thing. So again I'm going to go back to 7 and use a little rotation, so that I'll not use double R, I'll use just a bit of rotation to make it stable. Right, now I do want to cut them, and I do want to cut a portion of it and project it up to this level. So what I'm going to do is again going back to edit mode, and I'll use Control R and right, then this is it. Now as you had done earlier, select the face. So for selecting the face, again you have to click this, right click your mouse, and then you have to use extrude region. So right then it comes and gets joined up quite nicely here. Right, this is all we wanted. Go back to your object mode. It's pretty much ready. Press 1, create. Press 9, press 7, this is the top view. Press 1, and then using 6 and 4 you can move around. Your chair is ready. Once your chair is ready, you can use F12 to see if it's being displayed nicely or not. So this is where basically your camera is. It's more or less displaying, and I'll be again shifting to 3D view. And back to 3D view. Now interesting thing is that placement of the camera, that's so very essential. The angle from which you want to see the camera is right here. And the next thing I want to do is I want to adjust the camera. So basically important thing is to see active camera, and this is what is very important. What you are going to see. So this mode is going to tell you how your scene is going to be rendered. So right now if you select the camera object, okay, I'll go back to 3D view mode and to front view. So you see, this is very much the camera, this is very much the location of the camera. So what I can do is just go a bit higher and then visualize. So you can see as I have taken the camera to the up, this is how the model will be displayed. And if you say F12, this is exactly the scene that you are able to see. Again I can go back to 3D view. So this is where your camera was located, isn't it? This is where your camera is located. Now you can use Alt D so view will be going for left view. So see how projection works is, if you see something, from 20-degree angle or any projection plane, then you are going to get a view of entire 3D stuff. And if you do not do that, you are not going to get hold of the stuff. So you can click on duplicate objects and you can take your camera to specific directions, in order to increase the view. Again you can make duplicate objects, bring your camera in every direction. Again you can press duplicate objects, bring your camera right now. So if you see view and Yes, so basically it is press F12. You're not going to see anything. That's because your active camera right now is from the bottom, and make this as active camera. View, active object as camera. So you should definitely vary your objects and select different lines, few cameras, active camera. So these are different cameras that is going to give different views. Right, so come to front view, left view. So these are all different views, and you can go minus and plus and to see what exactly it is. And this is a camera which you can bring it closer or whatever. Using this camera you can say active object as camera. This is where the object's location is. You can push this one in the field of the camera, pull it a little back. Now this is the view that is going to be seen. If you want to make any changes in the way your chair is going to be displayed, I'll set this view. This looks pretty nice to me, and this is how your chair pans out, right? So once you've been able to do this, the very next thing is texturing. Texturing is a way of applying paint here. So what we are going to do for texturing is we are going to apply this is basically the camera angle which you have set, so even your default scene model is showing this one. Now the first thing for texturing is to convert this 3D model into 2D model and then apply the kind of color that you want this model to be having. Now in order to do that, what should we be doing is from object mode, go to edit mode, go to face selection and select and here you should have an option called before doing that, what I'm going to do is mark this into two parts really, and I do not want it to be same 3D view. Instead of that, click on this cube option and you'll see a UV image editor option. go for UV image editor. You can select properties, or you can close it out like this. So here's your image editor. Now I'm going to go back to this one. I've selected all the edges. Once you do that, the next thing that you're going to do is come back to your left property pane. You see something called UV mapping. So what you need to do is first mark stream and then click on the unwrap option. So this is basically the view that I was looking for. Okay, so for painting, all I'll be doing is I'll select all the faces that I want to paint. I need to select all the faces carefully which I'll be willing to paint. I can okay, now once you've done this, first you need to mark the stream and then you need to click on unwrap option. Well, this is what we wanted. So your three-dimensional chair is now got converted into 2D blocks where we can apply texture separately. But before applying the texture, I want to save this model first. For saving this model, click on this option UVs and export UV layout. I'll use desktop and I'll give it some name, say chair texture. Alright, so your chair texture will be seen here. Now ideally you should be editing this with Photoshop, where you can see that transparency is maintained, but for simplicity I'll be using paint here. Go right, you can see this model, it will be white the other part, so I don't mind. I just want to use texture in order to see how it works. So carefully just fill up edges. I want just different colors for different edges in order to demonstrate how basically this stuff works. That's it. So I'll just paint it. I'll paint it and I'll use some other color here. That's it. So I've marked all the color. I'll save it. The important thing with applying texture is once we've done this, I'll keep it as it is. I'll go to object mode. Once I've gone to object mode, in this plan here we'll see you can see this mark called material. So we'll first be applying one material, give it some name. Let me call it a red material or something, and select one color just to primarily see if the texture is being applied or not. However, I do not want this color to be over here. I want my image to be applied instead of texture. However, image is a separate texture, so just beside this material option there is a texture option. Click on new, and here from the drop down list just select image or movie. From image or movie option, open your file. If you remember that given it a name cheer texture, so I'll use cheer texture. However, by default this will be applied as a single image of the entire thing. This will be considered as an independent texture. I do not want to do that, so I want these edges to be mapped, which is UV mapping really. Now for that you have to come to a property tab called mapping. Here by default coordinates will be selected as generated. I do not want it generated, I rather want it UV map, right? Fine, I have selected UV map. So now projection is flat. This is the thing that I wanted. Now again I'll come back over here. See, this even after applying UV map, this is not seen as I had expected it to be seen. The reason behind that is the main texture material is still reddish, but we had used UV map, but I'm not displaying this as UV map yet. So all I have to do is first I have to convert it to UV map. So I'm using UV map editor, and I need to import that image back here. Open image, desktop, cheer texture.png. So this is basically my UV map image, and right, I'll now click on the properties of this one by plus sign of where my object is, and you need to find display option. So I'll select display option, and in display you can see shading option is there, which is by default selected to multi-texture. I'll use GLSL and make texture solid. Right, so whatever color you had applied as texture to different sides, whichever faces are selected is appearing with different colors in your blender. This is the basic operation of any blender. Taking this in concept and keep learning, you can make various models, so independent models you can make. Hope you've enjoyed the simple Blender tutorial, which is quite simplified for people who are willing to get a start with Blender.